Hello, this is Angela Anderson. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to add some color to our black and white treescape that we did in my previous video. So be sure to check that out if you haven't already. All you will need for this project is a sea sponge and some acrylic paints in whatever color you choose. I'll show you 3 different colors today: turquoise, yellow, and purple. So to start out, we're going to want a damp and clean sea sponge. So wet it down in your water and then blot it off to get off any excess moisture. Then we're going to use a color on our turquoise tree called Phthalo Turquoise. If you don't have this color, you can mix it with phthalo blue and phthalo green in equal parts. Makes a beautiful, deep, dark, transparent turquoise color. So when we put it over the top of our black there, it will show the undercoat a little bit. So I'm going to use this as my base color and map out all of the edges of my tree, just making sure that I kind of keep my borders irregular and go over all of the black in the middle of this tree so that it all has this kind of turquoise undertone to it when we put our top coat and lighter layers on top. I'll let that set, and I'm going to pick up a little bit of white now and mix that in to my phthalo and make a brighter turquoise color. This I'm going to use a little bit more sparingly. I'm going to use it to define my tree and make some little pockets of highlight in my tree. So I'm just kind of doing these rounded shapes and leaving a little bit of space in between for this darker shadows, and that'll give the tree the illusion of some depth. So I'm just overlapping some little areas here, but not really filling in solid with this lighter color. I want to leave a lot of that background color showing through. We can always add more of this. That's looking good. I'm going to come out a little bit bigger with this one, I think. I want this to be nice and big and really fill up that whole foreground. Okay, that's good. Now let's add a little bit more white to that. So, and squeeze my sponge so that it's really a tight, small area that I'm working with now. And just very carefully run a few highlights in just on the very top of some of my brightest areas here. Okay, that's looking good. Now let me find a clean spot, and I want to go back to my original phthalo color. Now that I have this lighter color in there, I can kind of blend over that transition area from the dark to the light and just add a little bit more depth into those dark areas. Don't want to cover over all of my highlights that I've already done, but I do feel like it needed a little bit more. It was looking very black in those shadowy areas, and I don't want it to look black. I want it to have some color. I think that that looks pretty good. I think I might do one more layer of the light just to kind of define a few of these spots if you lost them. Isn't that turquoise beautiful against that black and white color? I love that combination. Okay, now I'm going to use this down in the foreground just very lightly and just put a few little dabs in this area horizontally. So I want to keep it just slightly above the tree trunk and then mostly down below it, because that's how the leaves would fall. So just that area there, grab some of that darker spot and do a few of the darker dabs. I'm going very light on this. I don't want it to look like it's like a second tree down here. I just want a little tiny bit of that color underneath. I'm just going to define this tree a little bit with a little bit of a white highlight along that one edge there. Ooh, that's really bright. Let's do a little bit on this one too. That will really pop those trees forward. Maybe put a little tiny bit of highlight on that one, and then a little bit of highlight on this one as well. If it gets too bright, you can always go back in with a little bit of black to soften that up, but that'll help kind of give them a little bit more shape. And I think I'm going to use this color on this turquoise tree too, just a tiny bit of the bright white, just to kind of give it a little bit more depth. There, done. Okay, so now I want to do this one with yellow. So for the background of the yellow tree, I'm going to grab some raw sienna. It's a deep yellow color. I'm going to use that as my base for my yellow tree. And you may need a couple of coats of this to go over the top of that black. This is covering pretty well because it's an opaque color. Just use it to define your tree shape. This tree I'm going to kind of have sort of an oval shape to it. I'm going to grab some burnt umber as well. Use some burnt umber with a little bit of white. These richer brown undertones will kind of help bring out the yellow. Okay, that's good. I don't want it to be completely solid, but I do need this darker color underneath so that when we put our yellow on top, there'll be some contrast. And I'm going to pick up some Cadmium Yellow Light. And Cadmium Yellow Light is a very vivid yellow. It's also a opaque color, so it should cover on this tree quite well. Yeah, so I'm going to squeeze my sponge to give it a nice like round little area here to dab. And I'm going to start at the top and just look how beautiful that color is. Just dab in a few shapes, leaving some of this pockets of the background color showing. So I'm doing kind of little oval sections that sort of overlap one another a little bit. There we go. It's so vibrant against that gray and black. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful yellow color. Okay, now I'm going to pick up some white. And just have a little bit of white on the tip there. And use that in the upper areas of my highlights. So just go over some of these areas. Maybe off to this one side so that this side is a little bit brighter than this side on this, so that the light's hitting it from this direction. Pretty. Now what we can do is go back in with some Cadmium Yellow Medium. This is a little bit of a warmer yellow. Find a clean spot, pick up a little bit of that. And we're going to go in on the underside of these areas in those shadow sections, just to deepen up that area. Now I don't want to cover it up completely. I do want to leave a little bit of that raw sienna showing through, but this color will help give it just that one more layer of depth. Now I'm going to go back in with my white and just touch up any of these highlight areas that need to be brightened back up again. Now we're going to use this color and just dab in a little bit of color underneath our tree so that it looks like some of the leaves have fallen down. Just a few little dabs, and that's all it takes. To finish up these trees here, I think I'm going to just take a little bit of white and dab a little bit of a highlight on this one. I'll leave dark so that that'll move that back in the background, but this one that's lighter here, we'll pop this one forward with a little bit of highlight. Same thing with this one. And we'll put a little highlight on this tree as well. Maybe a little bit at the top of that one. There we go. It gives it a little bit more depth. And maybe put a little bit more of the white on top of this yellow tree here. There we go. Okay, let's do this tree in purple. So for purple, I'm going to start out with Dioxazine Purple. Load that up on my sponge. Pick up a little bit of white. Since we've already got our black here, we don't really need to have any purple underneath. You could do this entire painting though with purple and just substitute the purple for anywhere that I've used black in my other video, and it would look awesome, I think, in all purple and white. But the dark purple is very close to black, so I'm just going to lay in some of this lighter purple underneath, kind of all over, and shape out my tree with this. There we go. All right, now I'm going to pick up a little bit more white, make a very light lavender color with the purple and white. And I'm going to squeeze this sponge so that I have a little bit smaller area to work with, give me a little bit more control. You could always use a Deerfoot stippler instead if you have a Deerfoot stippler brush. That would work as well. And I've used that in my red tree video. That's how I did my foliage in my red tree video. So with this, I'm going to start kind of laying in some little sections and leaving a few little dark spots so that it looks like my tree has some depth. Kind of curved shapes so that I'm kind of creating these little pockets of like oval shapes in my tree. I think that's good. I like that. Make sure your outline of your tree is a little bit irregular too. That'll help. Okay, so now I'm going to pick up the straight purple. And I still have the other color in my brush, or in my sponge here, so it'll be a little bit lightened. And I'm going to go back over and in these transition areas, I'm just going to softly go into the dark areas and up over my highlights a little bit. Especially at the bottom of my tree here. I want that darker color at the bottom. Okay, that looks good. Pretty. Now I'm going to pick up white and very carefully use just a little bit of that right at the top. It is cut a little bit with some of the purple, so it's not straight white. I'm just going to use this very sparingly. Just a little bit goes a long way with this really bright color, but we want some really bright highlights in some of these areas. So I'm just going to put a few random ones down kind of towards my dark areas too, just to break that up so it doesn't look so perfectly scalloped. I think that looks about right. Okay. There's our purple tree. Let's put some down here at the bottom. I'm gonna do some of the darker color and a little bit of the lighter color, just like we did with our other colored trees. Okay, there you have it. Hope you've enjoyed this series with the black and white trees and a little pop of color. I've showed you 3 trees today. If you want to see the red tree, you can check out my oak tree video or my Paris video. I'll be doing the black and white with red trees on my Eiffel Tower painting on Saturday. So be sure to check that out if you're interested. And thank you so much for watching today. I will see you next time. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and leave a comment for me. I really appreciate you watching. Bye-bye.